Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Riverdale as well as the latest episode of Happy. Like always, I'm talking about something that you want to listen to. You can always look in the description down below. I include a time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I say about this week's episode of Riverdale, you can skip to what I say about this week's episode of Happy. But the first thing I want to talk about is this week's episode of Riverdale. Quite a few things to break down about this episode. So first off, let's start off with all the farm stuff, because that's really interesting. Because obviously Betty's starting to notice like some weird stuff here and there. Obviously she goes through her first, session with, Edgar, and is about her confronting her dark side, and her dark side kind of manifests as, obviously her is like, oh, I'm the shadow you. It's kind of interesting because it's like, I'm the real you, and I'm the real Elizabeth Cooper. You are the fake, that like, this is who I've always been. Because basically her, Polly, Edgar, and Alice are trying to be like, well, since you were 8 years old, we found out that you basically had the murder gene in you. And they're trying to be like, yeah, and Dad doesn't have it. Which is like, even Dad doesn't have it. That right there was kind of bullshit. Because it's like, if you would have been like, well, you got the murder gene in you, would be like understandable. But it's like, which I think that is like, really, obviously it's not really just called the murder gene. I think they even gave the scientific name for it. But I think that is like a thing in real life too, that there's just like some gene or, either way, it's just fascinating. But it's like the moment they were like, oh, even Dad doesn't have it. I'm like, you're full of shit saying that Howl, out of any people, Mr. the Black Hood doesn't have that gene, you're crazy. Especially considering the fact that he got it from his family, so of course it's going to potentially pass on, if that is even the case at all. Yes, Betty definitely has her darker side, but still, everyone's kind of got their darker sides, regardless. Betty's the only one that kind of has her, like, liver kind of manifesting over, like, throughout the show. But nevertheless, like, I still bring that up every once in a while. She hasn't been Dark Betty for a while. But to be fair, I guess that's kind of showing how much they've kind of fused to become one, that, like, Betty's kind of accepted that side of herself while still kind of fighting it, I guess. Either way. But it's like, oh, yeah, like, oh, that, our cat Carmel? Yeah, what are you talking about, Betty? We drowned him. And so it seems like, oh, yeah, Betty, is bringing up some stuff that she did that maybe she blocked in her head. It's like, oh, this is some dark stuff, that anytime you need some dark stuff done, it was me. Secrets that we're hiding from our family and our friends, this side of us that no one knows. Yeah. And then it wasn't until Polly mentions it and being like, oh, the fact is, it's like, yeah, did Dark Polly mention the fact is you pushed me down the stairs? It's like, I got over it like years ago or whatever. I'm like, okay, yeah, that was a key sign that something super weird is. It's like, yeah, that's 100% bullshit. It has to be, because for Polly to literally bring that up now out of nowhere after that session too, it's like, yeah, there's definitely something to it. And it turns out that basically he's using the frequency, I guess, to like disorientate someone, make them in kind of a very suggestive state. And because what Betty ends up realizing, that's like, okay, so who's this lookalike? Turns out it's Polly. That's like, they're sisters, so they look enough alike. And I guess especially if it's dark and she's a little delirious, obviously she's going to really get sucked into the hypnotism, the delusion. And so it's interesting. And it's also super messed up that her sister's there, like, yeah, you're a serial killer, just like Dad. It's like, that's super messed up you're saying that about your sister, but I guess you're so warped in the head after everything that, of course, because the sad thing is she came here because she was trying to escape, she was in so much pain, and the farm, quote unquote, fixed that, but that was really interesting. Luckily for her, I guess the wax kind of muffled the frequency so it didn't have the effect that it's supposed to and kind of disorientate. Because it seemed like, oh, she got disorientated and it's all in her mind, like a little bit of a mind palace. She comes to go. It's like, no, they literally take her to a different room, and when they're done, they pull her out, and it's like, oh yeah, man, all that trippy experience that was all in your head. It's like, man, that's some well orchestrated bullshit. Like, you gotta give credit there. She tries to warn the others. No one wants to listen. Obviously, like, Kevin's got a scar from like surgery, because it's like, oh, he turns your emotional pain into physical pain, because that way it's easy to get rid of. But then Betty realizes, like, wait, this is all about like surgeries and stuff like that. It's like, why are you telling Evelyn, like, why are you taking medication for someone who just got new organs? It's like, wait, you're getting new organs? And even I was like, yeah, but it's like everything for her. It's like, is that what this whole thing is, like, continuously giving organs to her? But it seems like that's not the case, because even Betty's like, there's no way this could be all about you. But Evelyn's screaming out, you don't know what's going on, which is interesting, because Evelyn's been sick ever since she was little. which is funny to say that because she's supposed to be like a teenager, so like that's even further back because obviously she's 26 or whatever, so it's just funny to me to think about that. But nevertheless, Betty ends up finding out that the farm is a literal farm for organs. So they're selling it and apparently making a shit ton of money off of it too. But the question is, like, especially because Edgar later on is like, oh, there's a lot more to it. It's like, well, what is it? Like, are you arguing, like, saying, like, oh, we're doing good because we're giving this opportunity to people who wouldn't have the opportunity? Yes, we make money off of it, but we're doing good in the world. Is that what they're going to try and justify it as? Is this something that Edgar came up with himself, or that lady, that story he told? Once again, it's like the thing of this whole situation. You don't know what's real and what's bullshit. There's always probably a little truth within every lie, but still, you know. And now that whole Polly situation, too, makes sense why everyone saw who they saw. All you had to do is get someone close enough to look like that particular person and kind of get the other person disorientated. Of course, they believe it. It's like you literally told them all they need to know, and that person, all they have to do is take that information and use it against you, you know? So, luckily, Betty was able to kind of convince Cheryl. To be fair, like, the reason why it was able to work is because it's Cheryl. Cheryl is kind of down for it and everything, but, like, Cheryl's already ready to always, like, if I get bored of this, I'm bored of it. You know, it's like Cheryl, like I said, that's why it kind of makes sense, like, she out of anyone. Because I guess Fang and Kevin were such in a low place that they were the most malleable. Cheryl was malleable, but once again, it's like, she's stubborn. Like, literally the whole prom queen thing from last episode, like, how kind of about that she was. And how snippy she was with Evelyn. That's why I'm kind of like, yeah, like, it was never going to 100% take with Cheryl. Took a good chunk, but not the 100% under their control. Luckily, she was able to get to Tony, but she lets Tony out just so that it's like, we're not both going to get away, so I'm going to stay back so I can distract them. So, looking out for a girlfriend. So that's sweet, you know? But it's so crazy to see that Kevin and Fang are so into this. And I'm curious to see, like I said, what this whole thing is. Like, is this... It seems like it is connected to Gargoyle King's situation, but I don't know if that's kind of like dual sides to everything. Could that be potentially what's up with these people ascending to? Could you be using their organs as well? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like it has to be connected just because of the whole Jason Blossom thing, which I'm going to get to later. Well, I'll probably get to it soon enough, but the whole Jason Blossom situation. Well, hell, we're already there, but it's like... So, was that really Jason that she saw? Because of everything that went down with Ethel, which that's kind of crazy. It's like, you literally got saved from the game, but it's like, no. I was saved from the game. I was saved from the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. They're fake Gargoyle King. I ran to the real Gargoyle King. Nevertheless, it's like, so maybe when Cheryl was like, oh, I saw Jason, maybe that wasn't a delusion. Maybe that really is the real Jason, and he's trying to manipulate Cheryl, and maybe he is a part of this whole farm situation. Or maybe he is a Gargoyle King, or maybe it's just someone that looks like Jason. Maybe it's a long-lost sibling or something. Like, maybe Jason had a... Do triplets come out in different genders like that? That's what I'm wondering. Well, because the fact is, Jughead went and saw Jason's casket is empty. So it's like, how did you fake your death? Like, was that part of your dad's plan? Which is super morbid, especially because, like, obviously if that's the case, like, Cheryl's gonna be super pissed because it's like, wait, you've been alive this entire time, and like Cheryl's been devastated because of losing him, and just everything kind of turned upside down. Like, losing Jason was the catalyst that started all this, and I guess it kind of makes sense when you actually think about that being the case. All this came from Jason, so it would be the perfect opportunity to kind of like set stuff in motion so you can do what you need to do or want to do. Maybe in some twisted way, like going to the... Because this was originally supposed to be where Polly and him were going to run away together, so maybe he has a lot more say with this whole situation than you give him credit. I don't know. The only thing I was thinking about was like, could it be like a triplet situation? But I don't know if triplets come out like that. Like, I mean, I'm sure it's possible it has. I'm just not aware of like triplets having like two boys and one girl, you know? But maybe that's the case. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe it has nothing to do with triplets. Like, I feel like it has nothing to do with that, considering the fact that Jason is still alive. But it's like, your body was found. I guess you just faked it. Maybe that was a dummy. That was kind of like a Stranger Things when they try to use the fake Will's body in season 1. Maybe something like that. I have no idea. But that's so interesting because it's like, so much. Like, for one, it turns out Ethel's the one that gave the card to Ricky, who Ricky passed it on to someone else, who was passing it on to someone who gave it to Betty to be trapped by the Gargoyle King and the Black Hood, which it turns out Hal apparently cut off his own hand to make it seem like, oh yeah, I'm dead when I'm not, you know. Because I saw him holding a hook and everything, but it didn't click in my head that, like, oh, you literally have a hook hand because you cut off your own hand. That takes dedication. So that begs the question of, like, was he playing Betty the entire time? And at what point did the Gargoyle King get to him? Have they always been in cahoots? Or is it just, like, while he's been in prison? I assume, like, any entire time he's been in prison, that was kind of set in motion. But we'll potentially find out going forward, but still. But like I said, it's just interesting, like, Ethel and the Lost Boys. For her, she was even hiding out from the Gargoyle King because it's like, I failed my task, he might hurt me, but no matter what, she still wouldn't betray him because it's like, oh, I still care for him, he's still beautiful. In the grand scheme of things, that kind of makes sense because Ethel had a thing for Jason, didn't she? I think that was like the whole thing, like, she had a thing for Jason. And she thought something was there when it... But still, like, it kind of makes sense why she's so in defense of him, especially finding out the truth about who he really is. If he is Jason, it's like, oh, it makes sense. Like, she had the biggest crush on Jason. That's why she's like, he's still beautiful no matter what, you know. I can never betray him, you know? Because she was in love with him. So, then there's a whole Black Hood chasing after them thing. Why was that exactly? I guess... more so about getting Ethel because Ethel knows who he really is and everything, so she's kind of a loose end that needed to be taken care of, but still. Then there's a whole Ricky situation, like, he tried to, you know, ascend, but that didn't work out. He's just one of those kids that I guess is so deluded by the game, it's like, it's all he has, and he feels like outside of it, he has nothing. I mean, don't forget, his brother's dead, so he's just one of those vulnerable kids who are just kind of, with this cult-like shit happening, that's the whole point. Like, they go after the most vulnerable people, and a kid who's kind of on his own in this world, of course, he's kind of the most vulnerable, so... I'm very curious to find out what the hell that whole Jason Blossom situation is. I find that so fascinating to find out, like, okay, how the hell have you pulled that off? And how have you kept that secret for 2 other seasons? All of season 1, all of season 2, and now literally at the end of season 3, we're finding out, like, oh yeah, you're still alive. You've been orchestrating this whole thing, potentially. You are the real Gargoyle King, so... Which then, like, begs the question of, like, well, there's obviously all the fake Gargoyle King, so was he in cahoots with the fake Gargoyle King? What about the fact is that the Gargoyle King that Alice saw years ago, was that actually... Well, no, it could... Well, could it have been Cliff in disguise or something like that? I don't know. Maybe. There's also the whole thing of, like, oh yeah, the real Gargoyle King had that old thing tattooed on their body. Once again, I still went through that thought process last episode of being like, well, Betty assumed it was going to be on a back. Maybe it has to be on a back. But I was thinking, like, maybe Edgar had hit his somewhere else on his body. But it's like, if it's Jason behind all this, maybe it's on his back. Maybe it was always there. Just no one dared bothering with it. I don't know. Or after faking his death, obviously it was like a year ago he got it, so it's not like he got it like back in season 1. It's like, no, he got it literally back in season 2, potentially. Once again, depends on how the time frame works. Nevertheless, it's interesting. And then finally, there's the other side of things with Veronica and Archie trying to bring down Hiram. I did like Hiram, well, Archie going to Hiram and being like, oh, I'm going to challenge you to a boxing match. Unless you've, you know, I've heard you going soft since you got shot. He's like, nothing about me is going soft. So that's interesting because it's like he's planning on buying up Riverdale. He even telling Hermione is like, oh, you might as well kind of vacate the office and stuff like that, being mayor and stuff like that. Because at this point, it's like you being mayor is just kind of semantics. It's just like, really, truth be told, is I'm the one that's really in charge, and it's going to be super true going forward. So for him, he's using this whole situation as an excuse. Like, that's why you're like, it all has to be connected for Hiram to kind of take advantage of like all that's going down, the murders and stuff like that. I mean, to be fair, he took advantage of everything back in season 2 as well. And there's a lot of stuff he did behind the scenes in season 1 as well. Obviously, that was like Hermione acting on his behalf, but still, you get what I'm trying to say. So. And it seems like Veronica has a lot of steps to her plan. She's making it seem like, oh yeah, there's some illegal betting going on, and her playing like dumb, like, Daddy, don't do this. The fact that he's already put a whole bunch of bets. She's like, and then he's like, no. You should kind of use this as an opportunity. Blah 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 blah. Getting Reggie involved. There's actually part of me that was a little suspicious. I'm like, does Reggie secretly work for Hiram, and this is all part of some plan or something like that? It's still in the back of my head, but I'm wondering, like, could there be more to that or not? But still. that fight between Archie and Hiram was pretty rough. It's kind of sad that Archie's mom had to be the one to kind of see that. I mean, to be fair, I like her being like, oh, I'm going to go there because Hiram's an asshole and I want to see him get his comeuppance, you know? So I think that's kind of interesting. But for them to go from boxing gloves to just wrapped hands like that was like, geez, and things got super bloody too. I think at the time came, Archie could have kicked his ass. It's so interesting because obviously, like, Hiram had that whole conversation about, like, oh yeah, like, the real Archie is the one that tried to kill me, who wanted to kill me. So is that something that's in play right now that he's setting up, or is that something that's going to come at the very end? It'd be kind of sucky if he literally fucked Archie over literally 2 season finales in a row because he set everything in motion in season 2's finale. It'd suck if he did the same thing in season 3's potentially, but it's also got to suck because it's just kind of like, lo and behold, Veronica betrayed you. And what's interesting too is Veronica being like, he's like, oh, all this for an ex-boyfriend? And she's like, no, because I found out that Pops in the speakeasy were under your name, and I was super angry. That's so interesting. Like, that's a Hiram response of like, oh yeah, you screwed me over, so I wanted to burn you super hard. It's like, yeah, it's not even like Archie was the reasoning behind that, which I think that's kind of a sad and scary thing, because I think that shows you just how much Veronica's becoming like her dad. To be fair, she's done a lot of stuff that's kind of very Hiram-like, so it's not like it's that big of a stretch, but I feel like they're definitely pushing her towards kind of villain status in a lot of many different regards. So I don't know why I said it like that. So I'm interested where that's going, because I doubt it's going to be that easy. I mean, it looks like she won. She's even gloating to me like, I want you to have this single thought, I won, and walks away. So it's like, I doubt we're done. Like, Hiram has the connections, he has the pull, he has the reach. So I don't know if it's going to be just that easy. Because basically everything that would fall under the speakeasy, all the illegal stuff, because it's his name, like because Veronica found that out, she was able to make everything that goes down. He ends up taking a fall for it. So, like I said, whether that will stick or not, we'll ultimately have to wait and see. But then there's the whole thing at the end, which I kind of alluded to, like the whole, I feel like there's more with that whole Reggie thing, just because like, it's like, oh, Veronica, because Archie's like, oh, I want to tell you how I feel, but it's like, oh, Reggie already did it, and just like the weirdness and awkwardness, which is like, oh, maybe it's just a weird, awkward situation, but part of me's like, there's definitely got to be more to that. Part of me wonders if like, he had threatened Veronica or let her know about something being up. Could it be that, like, oh, maybe he heard from Hiram and he wanted to, maybe this could be the whole point of kind of trying to destroy Archie, as like ruining his chance of ever being with Veronica, and being like, oh yeah, he pointed a gun at your dad. Like, no matter how much your dad did some terrible shit, it's like Archie was that close to killing him. To be fair, he'd already made it clear that he wanted to anyway, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to play out the way I think it will. We will just ultimately have to wait and see. Next week's episode is the season finale, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this whole situation gets resolved, where our answers are going to be with all of this. I feel like it's going to be one hell of an episode. And now moving on to this week's episode of Happy. A lot of interesting things went down. Obviously, we get Meredith learning from the lady that ended up killing Blue's sister. We end up learning more about Orcus, and well, in particular, turns out he ended up surviving. I was like, well, the fact of the matter is he applauded Blue for trying to do what he did, but it kind of didn't work out, and so Blue ended up dying. Though you see that he is kind of reunited with his family. I was always curious about what happened to his wife and son, and turns out the dog. I figured that explosion in season 1 killed him, but I wasn't 100% sure. But to be fair, it's like, well, when you look back at it in retrospect, it's like, oh yeah, like the she had said like his sister was like the last person that Orcus could jump to in their bloodline. So it's like, oh, okay. So that should have been a clear sign, but it was just kind of interesting. You're like, oh, you see them kind of burnt up too. It's like, oh, that's super sad and morbid, because you even see the dog burnt up too. So that was interesting. It's kind of crazy to think about it. Yep, no more Blue. Like his last ditch effort to do that. It's like, oh, it kind of worked. It didn't work out in the end. It's like, oh, one of us was going to die. That's just how this whole situation worked out. So it's like, yeah, you get to be in your afterlife. What that is entirely, we don't know. I mean, like I said, we see him surrounded by his family, but it seems more like hell, which I wouldn't be surprised it's Blue. So it's kind of like that might be where you are. So who knows how the afterlife really kind of works, especially in this damn world. So nevertheless, it turns out that obviously, once again, Orcus, god of death and everything, but it turns out those things, the Wishies or Lamore, basically they are connected to him, interestingly enough, meaning that everything connected to Sunnyshine is connected to Orcus. So it turns into a thing of like, okay, so the Lamore end up going to basically there's like every once in a while there's a shining star in like the world, and that person's light, like right when it's at its peak, when that person is about to kind of make big changes and stuff like that, they're kind of struck down. The example they use is JFK, Martin Luther King, Princess Diana, kind of using those as examples of like, oh, throughout history they've done this, and their impact, that it causes this eruption of, you know, it kind of has this rippling effect. And so it seems like basically that new shining star is Sunnyshine. Basically he's going to die on television, and that like that fear and that eruption of everyone kind of like being caught up in that, in particular everyone that's going to be watching is mainly going to be kids, so like the cycle, basically the damage created from that is what Ocus is going to feed off of, I guess, to power himself up to devour this world. Because I think it seems like that's what this whole Sunnyshine thing was. It was slowly building him up into the superstar that he is, so that he has the most maximum impact. Because it seems like that's what the whole thing is of these wishies, aka, you know, the Lamore, is to put you in a position where your star shines the brightest, because when you're put down, it comes back into Ocus and floods, you know. So that's what it is. It's kind of interesting. For what purpose? I'm curious. Is it just purely for, like, do you live off of it? Does it keep you going? Or is it because you need that power to do something? Or are you planning on, like I said, world domination type of thing? Like, is this you, like, are you running low on, since the last time a star got hit, that you felt that euphoric energy? So, or is it still stockpiling from all the other previous attempts, and this is the last push, he needs to do whatever he needs to do? Or I don't know. I'm curious to kind of dive more into that, but I thought this whole situation was fascinating, because now it makes sense, like, what he plans on doing. It also makes sense too that Sunnyshine has no idea, like, why he's been put in this position. He thinks, like, oh, this is me. Like, he's thinking he's just getting his wish come true, which is to an extent true, but that's so, it's like so that the fall will be essentially that much harder for everyone else except for the person who ends up dying, you know. So that's kind of interesting. It turns out that Smoothie is a part of this too. Now, my immediate mind is, with everything going down with Haley, the way things is, Haley's there with Smoothie, and this is all part of the plan. I thought this was Smoothie doing his own thing, but it's like the entire time he's working for Ocus, this is his way of getting back at Sunnyshine for bringing him back with the eye and everything. But it seems like that eye allows him to communicate. Because of that, it seems like he can communicate with the Lamore. So I guess it's like a thing of, like, maybe a piece or a part of them was used for his new eye, reconstructing it and bringing him back or whatever. Potentially. But my mindset currently is, I think Haley's going to be the one that kills Sunnyshine, because it's like, the whole thing is, I think that's what Smoothie's supposed to be doing, breaking her down, like kind of chipping away at her innocence. Like, the ultimate, like, world-shattering thing is that the person to put him down would be a kid, because it's like, oh, so a kid that's probably filled with so much fear and anger, because it's like, oh, your parents lied to you. Like, I think that's the whole point. Like, Smoothie's trying to put her in a position where it's like, oh, you can't trust your parents, you can only rely on me. I would never steer you wrong. I'd never lie to you. I'm always upfront. I tell you the truth. And I think that's what that's going to be like. It's going to have probably more of an impact if it comes from Haley being the one to put Sunnyshine down. Like I said, just a current thought, but we'll ultimately have to wait and see where things potentially go forward with that. So, side note, it was really interesting that Ocus could just walk out of the prison with every single prisoner. To be fair, because I was wondering, he's like, why do you want to stay here? Why are you building up this army? It's like, it kind of seems like there's no purpose. Oh, it's like you were waiting your time. You knew that the moment would come when you get released, and you were building up this army ahead of time so that they do your bidding for you. In this particular case, they want to go after Amanda. Obviously, Amanda's pregnant, but the question then becomes like, well, it seems like it might be Nick's, but then I'm like, maybe it's not Nick's. Because my initial thought was that it has to be like, well, like I said, a wishy, but a Lamore baby, especially the reason why maybe it's so important to Ocus, like, not unless it's like actually like a demigod or something. Like, why else would you take such interest in it, you know? But I love, obviously, the bug being there, kind of starting stuff. Also, you know, Nick handling the whole thing of like, oh yeah, for one, it's like, oh, you're high. It's like, what is it? It's a cocaine? PCP? Molly? Like, he was trying to figure out what it was. It's like, oh yeah, he's probably run the gambit on drugs, so he's like, I know exactly that type of high. What is it, you know? But I love that line he says when he was leaving. He's like, sorry, I gotta leave, but you know what they say about if you're joining an orgy, don't join an orgy unless you're ready to get fucked or something like that. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then there's a whole thing of like, oh yeah, he's got to carry back Amanda, and Amanda's like, oh, I forgive you and everything, which Nick is like, I don't think that really counts because you're high right now. She's like, does it really matter? Because obviously every day, like, Amanda has her very strong feelings towards Nick, and it's like, oh, but in this state I am right now, I'm kind of euphoric, I'm forgiving you and everything. You have, you know, Haley showing out. I mean, it's almost like in this weird twisted way they have some semblance of a family. All the while, you know, Happy did his thing with Bo Peep. That was kind of interesting and just weird. And what did she say? I think she said, like, these sheep can't function without me or something, like they die without me. And Happy was like, I don't think you're able to say that word. And she's like, oh, don't be such a you already got laid, so don't be kind of like a forgot what the wording was. She was just kind of, don't be such a goody two shoes, essentially. So she kind of bails and everything. It's kind of sad because you can tell Happy's all happy about it and everything. He's like, yeah. He's kind of excited. But he kind of turns into like a little bit of a douchebag. And like, you know, it's like, oh, where the hell have you been? He's like, why does it matter? And it's like, why are you talking like that? And it's like, yo, you know, me and Bo Peep, he's like, wait, did you get some stank? He's like, we made love, Nick. And then I love Nick being like, yeah, I'm sorry we can't talk about the exploits of you getting laid. Awesome for you and everything. And he proceeds to drop like the shit ton of story that's happened without Happy being around. And it's like, wait, what? I love that. But like the moments between between, you know, Haley, Amanda, and Nick, and him even dragging Happy, but Happy being like, fine, I'll listen to my music. It's like, leave me alone, Dad. I hate you. He's kind of like entering like his teenage angst years. Like, he was kind of like all innocent and everything before, but now he's really in his teenage years of kind of rebelling, like, fuck you, Dad, type of situation. So that's kind of interesting. But it's kind of like, because you have that moment of just like, oh, four of them are sitting there, and it's like they're almost having some semblance of a normal family situation. It's actually kind of interesting, that story that they told, the title of this episode. That's kind of neat. Or just kind of like, oh yeah, like someone else ended up getting the ring, and by the time they finally caught up to it, like, the long story short, like by the time they caught up with it, someone had already inscribed their names in it and everything. That kind of became like, I guess, an inside joke between them. But then like Nick sees that, you know, she's obviously a little kind of going through a withdrawal. He steals a drug from her, and then like kind of Amanda's darker side comes out, because all that drug was kind of sedating a lot of those raw emotions she has towards Nick, and without the drug she kind of snaps, and it's like, oh, fuck you. The fact of the matter is, why you think I kept Haley away from you? I'm gonna go to Sunnyshine because he's a real man. He's more man than you. And then like Nick kind of pauses, he's looking around, he's thinking about it, he's like, does that mean you've seen his dick? It's just like, I love that he cannot let that go. It plagues his nightmares. It plagues his dreams, I think, at this point in time. It's just kind of crazy. Then he's got Amanda tied up in the basement. He's getting Haley to look after her. And I love, like, you have, you know, Happy kind of a little distraught, because it's like, what about Bo Peep? Well, you know, is she going to call it at whatnot? It's like, one, does she even have your phone number? You didn't seem like you really thought that through, of like, oh, she's like, I'll call you. It's like, does she even know how to get in contact with you? It seemed like an obvious thing, but maybe it's just me. But it was kind of interesting where, like, you know, you have Nick being like, the fact of the matter is, dude, the fact of the matter, what you got to do is find you some more imaginary ass. Go tap you some imaginary ass and tap it hard. It's like, like, those words are being uttered. Tap some imaginary ass. Might not necessarily have been verbatim been in that order, but that's the gist of it. Tap some imaginary ass. What other show could you literally get that line? Like, holy crap. I even love him making a joke being like, I hope it was an imaginary friend and not like a pineapple or something, that a mouse, I think he said like a mouse or a pineapple or something like that the first time when he found out about Happy getting laid. Basically, it's like him saying, like, well, you're not tied down yet, so basically go out there, kind of enjoy yourself, and then basically saying if there's anything with Bo Peep, maybe you circle back around and everything will be good, but till then, just kind of live your life and just, once again, tap as much imaginary ass as possible. Oh, dear, the things this show will literally have you saying and repeating, it's fucking insane. A phrase you'd never think would ever be uttered. Regardless, like I said, I'm on a little tangent. Moving on. it's sad that things kind of, like I said, they had this beautiful moment of like, oh, they're having fun and everything, but that kind of gets dashed when, like, you know, Amanda's like, okay, cut me free, Haley, but Haley kind of is like, no, you've lied to me about so much, you've lied to me about Dad, and it's like, oh yeah, then you have Nick coming in trying to talk to her about everything. It's like you're trying to run to Sunnyshine, the same person who kidnapped her daughter, and Haley overhears it like, wait, Sunnyshine kidnapped me? He's like, yeah. It's like, why isn't he in jail? Because sometimes the bad guy gets away. And it's like, and you knew this and you didn't tell me? He was like, I was trying to protect you. It's that sad thing of, even though they shouldn't have done what they did, but it's that parent situation of like, you lie to your kids because essentially it's that thing of like, the world is so fucked up, the last thing you want to do is dash it, because she's still a little girl. But I think for them, they're forgetting the fact of the matter is they're trying to protect her because of everything she went through. But it's like, you have to be honest with her because of everything she went through, that she's not still that same little girl anymore. And I mean, that's the whole point too. Like, once again, because thinking about it in retrospect, it's like I'd forgotten about the fact is that, was it last episode or was it the episode before? Like, I want to say it was last episode. Remember, you had Smoothie making that whole point to Haley of being like, having her see the world from a very pessimistic and jaded view of like, your eyes are open now and they can be never closed again. And you can see the world for what it is. It's like you need her to become jaded so she can listen to what you have to say, of like kind of being like, yeah, the world sucks and this is what's necessary. Like I said, that's where my mind is. Once again, her being the one that pulls the proverbial trigger on Sunny, because once again that also depends on how they operate the whole like, oh, killing Sunny in front of shit ton of people, like millions if not. So it's definitely going to be interesting. But yeah, Haley didn't like the fact is that they've just lied to her over and over again, and it's just, like I said, it's just that thing of like trying their best, especially because they are not perfect in any shape or form. Nick sure as hell isn't. I do like that he proceeds to fight all those prisoners, and I like that thing. I don't know what you call that, like from a film or televised, like what that technique is called, where it's like it's frozen like that. Because I don't know what that like the technical term for that is. It looks super dope, especially every time, like, obviously the lights are flickering out and they cut to it and stay on it for a couple seconds and kind of move along it. Because Netflix kind of has that when, like, you leave your Netflix on and it kind of, like, goes into screensaver mode. Like, it flips through these different, like, it kind of does that. Like, I don't know what you call that. Like, is it motion picture? I guess that's what that is. I don't know, because it's technically not a motion picture, is it? I mean, at least in this case, like I said, the camera's moving, but everything else is standing still. Maybe it's all moving at such a slow pace, it just seems like it's standing still. Either way, it just looked badass. I also love, it shows you how good Nick is at what he does, because he proceeded to kill literally everyone. Man, blood and teeth flying everywhere. I felt that was kind of my favorite one's probably like he's throwing the hammer and you see a whole bunch of people kind of their faces stuff, kind of one dude in particular dodging it, the other dude takes the hammer to the face. But Happy gets to Nick and it's like, what about, you know, Haley? She's with Smoothie, and then it's like, you know, it's like, yo, your boy Nick locks and loads, gets dressed up, and I love Happy being like, I guess we're off the wagon. And you have Nick being like, you're goddamn right we are, and puts on the scarf and it's like Happy Easter. I'm like, hell yeah. I don't know, that's so dope. Because I guess it's like, we're no longer in dad mode, we're in scummy hitman mode / dad mode. You know, he's entered his truest form, I guess, if you want to look at it like that. But nevertheless, it's definitely going to be interesting. Obviously, there's the whole Amanda situation. Once again, trying to find out why she's so important, like what role she plays in this, like, because it seems like it's only her and no one else. Why no one else? Maybe they tried it with other people and it just didn't work out. Maybe they killed said people and just they've left Amanda alive just because she's the only one. Well, because whatever it is that's going on, like I said, it doesn't seem like Sunnyshine really 100% knows until, like, the Lamore, like, informed him about what's going on. She's like, oh, you're pregnant. They probably knew the entire time, but regardless. Like I said, I'm very interested to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.